All right, we are live. Hey everyone, sorry for a little bit of a late start. Just technical issues. OBS was saying that the stream wasn't going particularly strong, so I'm just double checking it on my phone right now. That's what I'm looking off to. But it seems like the video quality is okay. Just double check, and that the sound should be okay. I know the background sound's on really high again. All right, sound should be good. Video should be good. We should be good. Woo! Thanks, Steve and Darren, for joining us. If you have an opportunity, please share this so we can get more people joining us today. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about what mechanics, what ideas were not pushed enough. We're not like they may have been really, really interesting mechanics to start with, but they just didn't deliver the right punch at the end of the day, and because of that, they fall a little bit short here. So Alex is pulling out his list of cards that he wants to question me about. This is definitely a pretty interesting list. Looking at, you got champions, techniques, spells, summons, everything of the sort. Even some that I seem. Which ones? The ones I play with are Tempo Relocation. I've played with Yamaraja a few times. Battlecry I played with for a little while. So they're not all bad cards. They're just not.
No, and that's not what I'm going to argue. I'm not here to argue it that these are bad. Now some I might, but.
All right. Before I jump into that, just a huge shout out to all the people who support us on Patreon, everyone who supports us on just all our platforms, especially Future Leaguers. Thank you for that. Rob, you are welcome for the shout out to your store. I'm really excited about that partnership. So I hope you get your demo copy soon and you can start trying out the game. And then once things are ready, make sure you reach out to me, because we will be getting or hooking up as many stores as we can with promos so that they can start running tournaments. So all that will be happening in the near future. I'm really excited about it. But today we are talking about cards that fell a bit shy in the spectrum. So where do you want to start?
I'm going to start at the top and go back.
Okay.
So the interesting about this, that there's many ways to perceive how it wasn't pushed. It could be power level, it could be cost, it could be various factors. And I actually think a lot of the list that I have here is either they're not pushed because of restrictions that are self-guided on them. It isn't pushed because of unknown effects, unknown cause reality, like Yamaduta or Yamaraja I'm going to start with in a second. Let's just start right into it. So Yamaraja, it's the 8 chi for Sahas.
Before we jump into the card too much, let's break this card down. It has 6 health, 8 chi. It's Axon Chaos, meaning that any champion who wants to play it has to have both Axon Chaos. You got Resurrect Beckon, which is a different type of Beckon compared to normal Beckon, where you can only play it on a spot where something has been killed this round. Death Touch, when it enters the arena, it kills something around it with 3 or less health, and then Knowledge Assimilation. So when something around it dies, they get removed from the game, and Yamaraja gains all their abilities and their awareness. Sorry, I know we got some people who are watching who are brand new to the game, and on my end, the card already looks a little blurry, so I'm expecting people who are watching the stream can't read it at all. So I'm just going to be breaking down a few cards for them as we go. All right, back to you.
So I think this immediately gets categorized in the cards of we don't know the maximum potential this card can be, so we're gonna hold it back a bit. At the end of the day, it costs 3 life and 11 aura. And at that point of this card, the characters that could play this card had 18 health. 18.
Kendra's 19. Rain is 18. And then Core is 20 something.
And Core wasn't out when Yamaraja came out, though.
No, they both came from Raze.
Is Yamaraja from Raze? Oh, it is from... No. Oh, it is.
It says it right on the card.
Why did I think it was from the... Okay, well... That point of so if Rain plays this card, that amount of health for Rain to play is crazy.
That's true.
It's so expensive. It's a
That's
huge
true.
chunk of that life. Same with Kendra. Now I would agree. Core can play this a lot safer than the other two for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but then let's talk about restrictions. Past that, a summon has to have died.
Mm-hmm.
So when that has happened, you want it to be you want it to be in a good position.
Yep.
Because if it's in a bad position, you're not going to take advantage of the death trigger, which is sometimes you just won't because of matchup.
Yeah.
So it's a matchup dependent card where it's better versus other summoners, where you
Mm-hmm.
can take control of good summons that they control. And then you also need to knowledge assimilate the good creatures that they control,
Yeah.
which opponents aren't going to just be like, yeah, here, take my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Um.
Uh,
Sorry. To Joseph, who's watching on YouTube, we are talking about cards that did not get pushed fully in the game, and talking about like where they stand right now and where we could see them going. And then Steven, never apologize for the work you're doing for us on Tabletop Simulator. You are a godsend in so many ways when it comes to this entire process. We are so grateful for everything you do. Um, but at the end of the day, like Tabletop Simulator, this was a patch that we put on because of COVID. This wasn't our like digital. If we were to play the game digitally, this isn't what we wanted to do. This is just a temporary measure, and in the future, we will hopefully put something in that's a little bit more solid. But Steven, don't apologize. Alex and I are both so grateful. So yeah. All right. Yeah, you're talking about knowledge assimilation there.
yeah. So it's the card within itself is so restrictive in so many
Yeah.
places. The Resurrect Beckon
Mm-hmm.
you want it to be in a good spot for the Death Touch.
Mm.
So then you needed a good spot for the Death Touch. And if the Death Touch doesn't go off, Knowledge Assimilation really doesn't go off
Mm-hmm.
unless it's perfectly positioned. There's so many of these position requirements.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where this card is very good. The 6 health, like that's
Yeah.
perfect for an ancient. That's what we want to see for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back to the cost. It just 11 ore is not that high. That's pretty good. That 3 life is really
Yeah.
expensive for the restrictive champions that can use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's where I feel Yamaraja falls. So I guess the next question is, how would you push this?
now the other side to it, and this is the thing that people don't see, is when you think about the math of the potential of this card, right? Up to raise, what is the best potential of this card? Well, it assimilates Angel, which is what you're seeing on the card. At that point, it's just an Angel, right? It's no better than an Angel. So now you've put in so much effort. You had to kill a summon that was close to an Angel who was at 3 health so that Yamaraja could come in Death Touch, and then you're just sitting on an Angel. Well, how do you push that card a little bit further? Well, then maybe you give it a Sky's awareness, Sky or Zamber Dragon's awareness. Well, now you're an Angel with Zamber Dragon's awareness. Great. You're basically just a Zamber Dragon hitting for 3 more than a regular Zamber Dragon. How much further can you really push this card? There's not a whole lot more it can do at that point. Maybe you give it Fear with Fearmonger, but there's not a whole lot you can do with this card. And then the moment all that occurs, it becomes a massive target for things like, well, just any way to kill a summon. You will find a way to kill Yamaraja because it's just such a huge threat. So first off, the first thing I would change, if we wanted to keep everything else similar, give him Swift. Give him Swift on the Beckon.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
A huge difference. Now, he originally had Swift when we were testing it, and it was super powerful. Like, it was just it was really, really good.
I like really, really good.
And this is where the other side of it comes, of which you talked about earlier, is from a design perspective, like, I was there when we designed this card. I was there when we tested this card. It's when you're afraid of the potential future outcome, you just want to pump the brakes a little bit and be like, no, let's pull back. Let's make this a little bit weaker because we'd rather release a card that's on the weaker spectrum than on the broken spectrum. However, what I'm learning more and more as a designer is that there is a large gap between functionable and broken. And we dispute this almost all the time when we talk about Epiphany and why we haven't banned Epiphany, because we're like, no, it's still within that spectrum. It's not broken yet. But Yamaraja, I think as more and more summons start coming out in the game, this one could potentially see some life. But it's hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
Where would you push him? How would you make this card a little bit stronger?
I agree. Like the Swift would have been nice.
Yeah.
Being able to do stuff at the end of the turn after, like that's the other thing too. You place it down, you build it all up, and then it just dies on your main turn. An interesting thing I would have liked to see, if this, it may be pushing it a little bit too much, if the Death Touch was Death Touch 6. So it was literally the anti-angel.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, also when we're talking about pushing, it also would obviously, it would change cost. I'm not saying it would stay at its same cost for anybody listening. Just pushing the boundaries of a card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm learning when I play the Resurrect cards, Resurrect's a really weird mechanic because when you go to resurrect the summons, they're usually resurrected in the midst of combat. And if there's action speed resurrect, that means they are left in the middle of where anarchy just occurred, defenseless. They're out there defenseless. So my favorite resurrect summon currently is Yamaduta. It's not particularly strong, but the fact that it is a quick resurrect allows you to do it at the end of the round, drop an army, or drop an army in response to someone trying to encroach in your space, and then block spots and do weird shenanigans with whatever you can with summon with 2 health and 2 attack. The other thing I'd like to see with a resurrect summon is a summon with blitz. I think that would be really cool. But I think resurrect as a whole, really, really solid mechanic. A lot of great things that can come out of it, but we still played too cautiously. Though, I said this recently, I was playing a lot of games with Casmodon, and I love Casmodon now. It actually worked as a resurrect summon, but the only way it worked was with Call to the Bone, so I can waste all my opponent's exerts through my skeletons, and then have my skeletons kill each other to open up the door to resurrect. So Call to the Bones becomes very, very critical in the resurrect scheme of things. But yeah, no, I agree. Yamaraja, and the thing is, Yamaraja isn't done yet. Until we're done playing with the card, this card always has the room of becoming a lot more powerful.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because there is going to be, you don't know what summons are going to come out in the future. Anyways, let's move on.
Alrighty, our next card is Olgi Gakore. You want to tell it out for the audience?
So 4 health, left, right, forward awareness, 7 chi. It costs 15 ore to beckon, which is pretty good. It has swift, earth attack 4, and then it has trigger, counter attack 2. Counter attack 2 means whenever it's dealt damage by a champion or summon in its awareness, it automatically hits them for 2. Not automatically, it's a trigger. They can respond to it, but it does allow you to hit back. So in contrast, Alex just grabbed the Enraged Gorilla. 7 chi, so same chi slot, 2 more health, front awareness, counterattack 3, so its counterattack hits for 1 more, but instead of having the swift attack 4, it has a heavy attack of 5.
So this card is a much minor difference for pushing. I think there's nickel and dimes on this card that I would like to have seen push, because as a card it is actually pretty solid.
Yeah.
Comparing these two, when you compare base stats, you're like, wait, it has 2 health less, it deals 1 less damage, its counterattack does 1 damage. You compare the two, and it's like, well, why would you ever play Ogi? But that's completely incorrect, actually. The main difference here is yet that Olgi, when it's in there, it's going to get in for damage. It's almost 100% guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say almost there. Where the engage gorilla, which is all action speed, is not guaranteed to do the 5 damage.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about how I would have liked Olgi to be pushed. And it's specifically, there's 2 spots. Starting with the HP, I would have loved to see this at 5 HP.
Mm-hmm.
The number 1 technique played is Bolt Shot. It is immediately dying to Bolt Shot, which means its counterattack now no longer relevant if it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would have liked it. I would have liked it at 1 more hit point.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, I would have loved the counterattack to have counter Earth attack. Because if the other place for it was in the Earth themed decks, if you had dropped a pillar and then it's like counter Earth attacking 3, 3, 3, that would have been pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it's just minor changes for these ones.
And I think a big thing here is the realization we shifted the scales, right? In Raise, up to Raise, a 7G summon should have, I think it was 4 health and 4 attack. This is the size we want it to be at. And the reason behind that is the tempo of the game in Alpha and Beta was, in J, it was starting to get too fast. So in Raise, we wanted to pull back the tempo by making the summons a little bit smaller. But they never felt like they were worth the investment, especially at the 7 and 8G slot. So that's why anyone's part of Future League, you'll know that the tempo for these summons, or the size of them, is starting to get a little bit larger. And that's because we want to make it feel like it's worth putting the cards in your deck.
Makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think if Olgi had 5 health, and I think the Earth counterattack would have been nice, but not necessary. But I think if the thing had 5 health, it's then, like, that's the necessary move for a 7G. At the very least, the 5 health.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, cool.
All right, going on down to the Sadistic Illusion. Tell her, you may tell the audience.
All right, so at 7G, front awareness, so all 6 spots in front of you. You can only play Sadistic Illusion if you are being targeted. So you're going to get attacked or something like that. In response to that, for 15 aura, you can swap spots with a target in Sadistic Illusion's awareness. And now everything that was going to hit you is hitting that target instead. So it's basically, the influence of this is like the Naruto moments where you go to hit someone and then they turn into a block of wood. That was kind of the idea. But instead of finding a random target who's not actually in the game, you are switching with someone in the game for
that. So for me, this defensive card at 7Chi is really expensive to put in your deck. 7Chi already as a defensive card, that's a high Chi for me. Then it has the restriction that if only you were being targeted, which is the next point for me. And then it's like, who normally plays this type of card? Well, a caster does. And then I go, okay, well, so a caster spending aura, I would have loved this card if somehow it was an energy. Obviously, this is clearly a spell. It's an illusion. Yeah. But if this was an energy type card, it fits better in my style of building. I think really where this card comes down to is I think it starts at the 7Chi. Is just really high for a defensive card. I understand the potential for it.
Yeah.
But you can defend or agree or disagree on this one because I believe you are a Sadistic Illusion fan.
I love the card in concept. I think it's really fun to play outside of Constructed. Like if you're playing Limited, Booster Draft, or Sealed, or you're just playing casually, multiplayer, it's a really, really great card. It creates the room for really mess up plays. And that's something that, from design perspective, we need to keep that in mind. We need to create cards that are really fun for, especially for multiplayer, where things can get really chaotic. And you can swap with, opponent A is attacking you. You swap with a summon from opponent B, and, that summon dies or something like that. Or the attacking summon is killed because of counterattack or something like that. There's a lot of fun plays with it. I understand the desire to remove that clause saying you can only play it if you're being targeted. However, we saw this with Chrono Walker. The moment you remove that clause, the card becomes exponentially more powerful. Like there's no middle ground between the two. The card just starts growing in strength so much, especially as more summoners start showing up in the game. We're playtesting a champion in Future League called Swarmer, who brings out more summons. Every time he beckons a summon, he brings out a second summon. And that in those type of situations, this card could become not absurd, but like a lot stronger than the designers were intending it to be.
Sure.
Now, the one thing I wish Decoy could do, but we found ourselves in early phase testing, it was too strong of a mechanic, is being able to swap with not just summons, but with champions or summons.
That's what I was going to bring up for something that could have been pushed. Yeah.
And that's something that we did testing for in the early days, and it became really problematic when people were, I'm going to attack you with my angel. Well, I'll swap with you, and now your angel's attacking you. And it became a very unfair moment. It felt, to use Shenanigans words, how does he say it? He says it's a very unfun moment. Unfun moment. Yeah. And that's definitely the feeling of early, especially with Lambs to the Slaughter in the early days. But so we had to pull the mechanic back. Now, we may have pulled it back too much, that it's no longer solid on a 7G card. That's fair. This card at 6G might be a lot more playable. So, yeah, I'm torn by it. I think where it stands right now, where it should really be considered, is if you're making a multiplayer deck. And then this card becomes a really solid card.
Yeah. All right, let's move to another 7G. For me, doesn't quite make the mark.
All right, so Apo, it's I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the full name. I've seen so many videos of people trying to pronounce the full name. We call it Apo. That's good enough. Swift. Swift cast 14 aura. You gain 1 health for each ability on the stack. This will count itself because it's on the stack at the moment of resolution. It's not removed until the ability is resolved or fails to resolve. And then, so the key reason why we designed this card is because we wanted that word stack to be more prominent in the game itself. It, like a lot of people, I think, especially if you come from playing other card games, they have this mechanic in place. They have the stack, the chain, other ways to resolve when multiple abilities are trying to resolve at the same time or resolve in order. But they try to stay away from it for new players. And I think that's fine. I think that was fine back in the day. But nowadays, players are very comfortable with this mechanic. And it's not hard to teach when you're using physical cards because you can literally stack them on top of each other and show the resolution. So we wanted to steer into it and started showing people the word stack more often. But this card does fall a little short. This is a big reason why we never even seen anyone try to break this card. And I'm sure you're going to get into why.
All right. Oh, I should have brought my reference card out. Or what's the one? Angel's Kiss? What's the 5?
Angel's Embrace.
Angel's Embrace. Here we go. Bringing us Angel's Embrace right out. Angel's Embrace. It's a 5 chi, 10 aura, gain 4 life. So this card is 2 chi less, 4 aura less, and you don't gotta work for it.
Yeah.
So at what point does Apo become better than Angel's Embrace? We could say at a 5-card stack, it's gaining you more life, but you're still not, or you're still paying more. If we roughly could say, let's just say every 2 aura is roughly a health. We're just gonna roughly say here for this. So at the point of paying the cost, you sort of need 6 to begin at the right cost here. But it really comes back down to it starts at the chi point. This is a defensive card at 7 chi. I
Yeah.
think the 7 cheese, the 8 cheese, even some 6 cheese, these are the cards that are supposed to win you the game.
Mm,
That's where my perspective is. Or they're supposed to be part of your combo or build you. It's supposed to get you to winning the game.
yeah.
This is a defensive card that on a good day is doing an Angel's Embrace.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few times I've seen it do more than that, and usually, once again, that's in multiplayer when there's several
Yeah.
people throwing cards onto the stack.
Yeah.
Um, where how would I have pushed this? Maybe I'm crazy. I would have liked to see it do 2 HP per card in the stack.
I remember in the early days when we tested this, um, we had, it originally was 2 HP on the stack, and I stepped away from the testing room for a little bit. I had to go deal with something. I come back, and Lionel and Carl like, Apple's broken. It has to go down to 1 HP. It's way too powerful of a card. And I think it was just the situation they tested it in where Lionel hoarded a bunch of attack cards with Fong, and then came in with a bunch of left hooks, bolt shots, so on and so forth. Built a really big stack, dropped a few of these on top of it, and then gained like some absurd amount of health.
Observe out.
Yeah, and but again, this is one of those situations. Anyone with a testing background, and this is one of the things that frustrates me about testing, is you have to test in labs to get quick results, but they're so inaccurate of the real world experience. And I think my thing about this is if I were to really push this card, the only to keep as many things similar as possible, I would shift this down from a rare to an uncommon or common, where it's a card that people can get a few of to be understanding what it is. Maybe build a deck around it for multiplayer or for some casual format, but not make it the rare card in your pack. That's my
I can agree.
yeah
And that's a big thing, and I do have a problem when perceiving these cards.
yeah.
And I'm like, this is a rare,
Mhm.
and I go, this is a rare. But Angel's Embrace is an uncommon.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would look at, so we're still testing the stack mechanic out, and we're seeing a lot of testing in Future League, which is great. Thank you to everyone. I say that over and over again because it means so much, because we're able to design cooler mechanics faster and more accurately than we could in the past. When we first started with the stack mechanic, what was our first card? It was Foresight of the Ancient. That card, uh, luckily, JC came in, he tested it, and was like, no, that card needs Exert on it. Otherwise, it's broken. And he showed us that it was going to be super broken. Um, so we added Exert to that. Now we're coming up with Apo, and we're like, well, we want to take off the Exert. That was us trying to make this card stronger by taking off the Exert and testing it, like being like, okay, what is it like if we just you're able to do it whenever you want? And we're like, okay, it's a little bit better. So the next step up would be, we've seen some cool mechanics in Future League. I don't want to spoil things too much for people who are watching, but there are ideas that we have of like, what's that next step, right? We want to take those stepping stones. So, was Apo a step back from Foresight of the Ancient? I don't know. It's Foresight. This was our opportunity to test taking off Exert. Would they make these type of cards way too powerful? There's still a case by case example, but I think for the most part it doesn't. We can make these stack cards without putting the Exert cost onto them.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right, let's move on over to the 6 Chi with Deathly Return.
Speaking of JC. All right, so front awareness, the 3 spots right in front of you, 6 Chi. This costs 15 aura at action speed, and you get a return a summon indefinitely or returns awareness back to its owner's hand if that summon has a Chi of 6 or less. And then the trigger, to summarize, is if you return to summon, you get to take a Skeleton Warrior, which is 1 health, 1 attack summon, and place it where the return summon was, and then exert it, and you're basically returning the summon and replacing him with this 1/1 skeleton. Yeah, that's what the card does.
Yeah, and for me, this is just it's literally the one caveat. It's like with 6 chi or less, and this is once again, I think it's mostly just the fear mechanic. It was the fear that bouncing angels is unfair to your opponent. This
Mm-hmm.
is this is an arena fight. Why are you trying to be fair for your opponent? If it let's just talk about flair for the characters. Korra comes in. I don't want you to feel bad that you summoned your big scary monster, and I sent it away. I don't want to. I just don't want to do that to you, man. All right, hit me with your angel. Come on, come bring it in here.
Fair,
And that's
fair.
pretty much about it for me.
um, yeah. Again, it's one of those. A lot of these cards, it's really going to come back to the fact that we didn't have as strong of a Future League team then that we do now. Not saying that the Future Leaguers who's been with us from the very beginning that they haven't contributed a lot. They really have, and I'm so grateful for the work we had in J, that we had for Beta, that we had for Rays. But now we have a larger team, and that allows us to do a lot more. Um, so we can test what bounce back should really look like in this game, because it's not the same as it is in other games. And
Yeah.
you're right, it was a fear. It was this idea of, if we would it be an unfun experience, just like we talked about with Sadistic Illusion. Would it be an
Uh,
unfun experience? And
a- and for me with bounce back, I think because I understand the fear of like punishing your opponent for having big summon, but I think we need to. It's not necessarily punishing the opponent for having a big summon. It's punishing an opponent for not defending their big summon, for not
mm-hmm.
putting protections in for their big summon.
Yeah.
That's what I see personally.
And also keep in mind, when we were designing Deathly Return, and even now, there wasn't a lot of ways to defend summons. It's growing more and more. There are better ways to do it.
Mhm.
Melissa's Persuasion is still, in my opinion, hands down the best defensive card for summons.
Yep, I agree.
Cog Restrict's a good, useful one, but you have to be in the right space at the right time to Cog Restrict against Deathly Returns. And then, uh, besides that, there really wasn't any way to defend a summon. So now, with more options, more opportunities to help summons out, it could lend for more opportunities to create stronger responses to summons, because now there's ways for summons to be supported by the champions.
That's true.
So,
All
yeah,
right, let's move on down to
Battle
Battle Cry.
Cry.
This is a personal one. This card is not bad, but I'm going to explain my issue with Battle Cry, and I think it's a perception that just people don't see with Battle Cry.
Hmm. All right.
Go
All right. So
ahead.
6 chi, you pick the summon right in front of you, and for 4 energy, you increase their current attack. So it's not their next attack, but the attack that they're currently playing. You increase its damage by 3 more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I just got kicked, which I mean, means you got kicked.
Yeah, I'm gonna be disconnected soon.
Well, that is a weird glitch.
Yeah, I'm still in it. It's interesting.
You are still in it.
Yep.
Interesting. All right, I
Oh,
will
there we
keep
go.
talking while I'm. Oh, okay. I can't even close the game because I
Yeah.
have Battle Cry like big zoomed in on my face.
So do I. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, Tabletop Simulator. What have you done to
All
us?
right, creating server. Oh
How did-
wait, global chat. Everybody's saying that it crashed.
Oh, Tabletop Simulator's down.
Oh, I'm still in it somehow. All right, so I think you're getting a short one this week, everybody.
Well, we can finish talking about Battlecry at least. And while I'm
Okay,
spinning
so
here,
I'll-
I can see some of the other cards.
That's true. So Battle Cry for me, here the issue with Battle Cry as a card
Mhm.
is that a you have to have the summon in front of you, very
Okay.
specific awareness.
Yep.
Now that summon will now attempt to attack. So
Mhm.
this is one ability gets put on the stack.
Yep.
Then you are going to Battle Cry it. Now if your opponent has any defensive card, they are going to 2-for-1 both the ability and this card
Yeah.
as a cost.
Yeah.
So this is more just perceptionist of the card itself. So I usually say, why play Battle Cry when you can just play a card that deals 3 damage?
Hmm. I
That's
don't
my
disagree with you.
perception of this card.
I've found myself in that situation quite often. Um, there are very, very minor situations where Battlecry does uh, it kind of add a lot more value than just a regular attack for three. So one of the situations, and I love this story, is when I attacked an angel with my baboon spider. My opponent left my baboon spider alone, thinking, "Oh, it's just gonna hit the angels for one. It doesn't make that big of a difference." But it goes to attack the angel. I battle cry it, hitting the angel for four, and then throwing a fireball and killing off the angel. And all of a sudden, you have a baboon spider who's normally ignored became really annoying to my opponent because I did this against an angel, a chrono walker, and a second angel. So, and yeah, it really, really changes things. But there are very few examples of when that happens. So that's why, for the most part, I've taken Battlecry out of my monster deck. Because, yeah, you're right. It's very limiting. And the fact that the attack has to be on the stack does not mean it allows your opponent too many opportunities to deal with it.
One more gripe with it
Okay.
is that it doesn't work with Formosan's Grilla triggered attack ability.
Yeah, that was actually realized much later on. I think like in the past
I remember
4 or 5 months.
I'm pretty sure it was me who
Yeah.
I'm like, I play it, and JC's like, actually, I don't think that works. I went, what?
What? Yep. And that means it also doesn't work with counterattacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they aren't played abilities. So how would you look at cleaning this card up?
So cleaning the card up, I don't remove played. I think if you remove played, and it just says increase, and I don't. Let me pull up the card again. I'm off that spot, but I can pull it all up again.
I'm hoping everyone who's watching, no one's also getting like a little dizzy from the spinning background. There was this game. I don't know if you remember this way back in the day. It was on Super Nintendo. It was called ActRaiser, and you were this angel character who was trying to help these different cities. And every time you went, you had this overview of the map. And then when you went to go into dungeon, it would spin, like the animation would spin very quickly and like descend you into the dungeon. And I used to get nightmares from that. I would play that game, and then every time I closed my eyes, the room would start spinning. I was very, very sensitive to those things. So even just watching this tabletop simulator slowly spin is like getting to me a little bit.
Though, to be fair, actually, I think the game design team already made a better version of it in Still
Vigor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people are running Instill Vigor. It's a very popular, very great card. Battlecry doesn't see as much play. So there's actually one thing that I think keep the rest of Battlecry the same, change one thing, and this card would be really good, is if you dropped it from 6G down to 4G.
Yep. Oh yeah, that'd be really good.
It would be really good at that point. Definitely worth running, because here's the thing: it changes from being a card that you have to build your deck around to a card that supports your deck.
Yes.
Dropping it to 2G means that it becomes a balancer instead of something that needs balancing. And then in those situations where you're not close enough to make it work, the card's still pretty reasonable because it allowed you to put in that giant scorpion. It allowed you to put in that what's another good 6G summon? Why am I only thinking about giant scorpion?
Giant scorpion, obviously.
Yeah, just more giant scorpions.
More giant scorpions.
All the giant scorpions.
Mongol, Baruch.
Mongol.
Mongol.
Mongol is actually a summon I really, really love. So I think that's the thing that would have made Battlecry really good. But again, it was the issue of pumping the brakes a little bit too hard when designing this card. And just what the potential was. So I agree. We could have done a lot of other tweaks to make this card worth a 6 chi slot, but realistically, this card is a 4 chi card.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, the thing I love about it is how in the background you have the Death Eater from Beta, the Beta Death Eater, and the Pai Uad, the zombie dog, in the background of Battlecry, running with Idris. So I love
they're in
this
the wrong awareness. You can't Battlecry them.
That's true. That's true. But this looks so much more cinematic.
You're right. Yeah, it looks way better.
Yeah.
You just gotta put them all blocking Idris's face. Idris, you just can't see Idris.
Well, a really cool thing you could have done is like Idris standing on some sort of rock, being taller than all of them, and you're actually, instead of having the viewpoint of being like close to Idris's face, you're actually POV from the enemy's perspective, and this horde of armies charging at you with Idris in the background during the battle cry. I think that would have been a really cool perspective for this too. All right. Yeah. I think for the most part we got to kind of call it there because Tabletop Simulator is going a little crazy.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a short one. But Joseph did remind us in the chat, there is the tournament this Saturday for Future League play. Joseph, so far you're the only one who signed up, but trust me, you're not the only one who's going to play. I have a good feeling that Alex, you're probably going to play.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, and Steve, there's a good chance. I know JC mentioned he was interested. The Future League tournament, we usually have a few more people playing. Hopefully, Tabletop Simulator is working that day. Something else about this art that I realized is it's Idris's second costume. So Idris is the only champion that has 2 costumes. And this Battlecry is her secondary costume from Raze. It's not her beta costume. There is the tournament happening this weekend. Steven just mentioned he always signs up late, so he'll sign up, and then hopefully we'll get a few more people, especially the future leaders.
Darren promised us last week.
Yeah. See, so Joseph, you'll have a lot of people to play against, and be comfortable with some new Future League cards because I think that's going to be a really cool environment.
Yeah.
All
the HE stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, what's the one with Blitz? Hot Pocket.
Hot Pocket.
That card's just... Oh my goodness. It's an intense one. Kind of like Hot Pockets. Man, I want pizza now. All right, let's call it for this week. Thank you everyone who's watching. I'm so sorry about this. I will... Is there any other announcements that you can think of? I think that's it for this week. Friday, I'm going to be doing a live stream. My presentation will be about... what is my presentation about? I have this in mind.
You said it last week.
Yeah, I know, right? But there'll be a cool game design presentation. Actually, the big thing I wanted to do was the Fridays... I mentioned this last week in the Friday live stream, but the only idea is there isn't a lot of content out there for people who are trying to build a collectible card game. They're thinking that the design process is very similar to building a regular board game, and it's really not. It is quite different. So I wanted to take similar topics that we talk about in board game design, but apply them to collectible card game. Like testing is very, very different for a collectible card game. So is designing scope, verbiage, a lot of other things that you have to approach in a different light than you do for other games. And maybe it's me overthinking it, but I mean, I'm proud of Genesis. I think it came out pretty awesome. So, come Friday for that. And then next week will be chapter 9 from the Akasha Codex. And I think that's everything that's happening these days. No other major announcements. It just feels weird ending so early.
Right. Are we really that early? We usually go late. We're just trying to balance it out.
That's what it is. Yeah, we're making up the minutes, right? We're giving everyone some time back. Everyone's still watching us banter right now. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.